Alright, so chapter 172 of Eden Zero is out, and in this chapter, through a conversation between Master Noah and Rebecca, we get a brand new understanding, a brand new clarity of exactly how both Cat Leaper and Reverse affect the universe at large, and we also get foreshadowed to the next big arc that we're going to be going into in the Kaede Cosmos, which based on the foreshadowing we're getting in this chapter, it seems like there might end up being a lot more deaths in this next arc than there were in the last one. And then on top of that, we get hinted at something that either Shiki or Zhao Mei might have done at the end of the last arc right before planet Nero 66 exploded that we didn't really fully understand until we got this chapter. Anyway, let's jump right into it. Okay, so the chapter actually opens up with most of the main members of the Eden Zero crew, you know, Shiki, Pino, Homura, Wise, Sister, and Hermit, all trying to get information out of Connor as to where exactly Ziggy's robot factory is. And at first, he's surprised to find out that these, as far as he's concerned, a bunch of kids were the ones who going from planet to planet, liberating all the ones under Ziggy's control. But even knowing that they faced that kind of danger, he was still hesitant in the beginning of the chapter to tell them exactly where the robot factory is, just because he thinks the planet is too dangerous for them to handle. But they do convince him that no matter how dangerous it is, they can handle it. And on top of that, Hermit and Sister chime in by saying that, they've been waiting for the past 3 years to find a solid lead on Ziggy, and now that they finally have one, they're not going to let it go. And Pino also mentions the fact that, until Ziggy is taken care of, the universe can't be safe, which seems to be the reason why Connor kind of changes his mind about telling them in this chapter. So he tells them that the planet the factory is located on is called Lendard, which I made this joke in the video that actually never ended up coming out, going over the spoilers from last week for this chapter. But I can tell, in future chapters, whenever we're talking about this planet, I'm going to accidentally end up calling it Leonard. Anyway, he tells them that basically this planet is in constant motion, or in perpetual motion, and that it's basically a living machine that's constantly cranking out robots. Now, when we first heard about this in the spoilers, it was mentioned that the planet was alive, so at first I thought, okay, we're going to be fighting against Eagle the Living Planet in the next arc. Then we ended up finding out from the translations of some pages that got spoiled that the planet itself was a machine, a living machine, which immediately made me basically think that, okay, this might actually be a threat that it can handle. Because originally, when I thought it was actually going to be a living planet, I thought, alright, well, Shiki's gotten a lot stronger over the past 3 years. But even now, I don't think he's strong enough to take on a planet-sized threat. But if Lendard is actually a living machine, then it's more likely that they actually could handle it. Maybe Hermit could hack into it, or maybe Wise could use his ether gear to kind of change the surroundings of it so they can't be attacked by that section of the planet they're on. It's more plausible of them being able to defeat it if they do have to fight against it than it was if it was just actually a living organism. Then we get to the big part of the chapter, which is actually a conversation between Master Noah and Rebecca, where he clarifies exactly how both Cat Leaper and Reverse affect the universe at large. Alright, so first off, he starts off by telling her that they are now in World 416, which, keep in mind, the last time these two characters talked, he told her that they were in World 30, and then, at the end of the last arc when Ziggy was talking to LZ, he declared that we were now in World 31. But that's still a big jump from 30/31 to 416. And the reason why he explains that they're now in that world is because that's the number of times that Rebecca has used Reverse. So basically, the way he breaks it down is that each time she uses Reverse, it does technically change the world number that they're in. But it doesn't really affect the universe at large that much. So, say for example, Rebecca's in a fight, right? And during the fight, she gets her arm cut off. And then at the exact same time her arm got cut off, a factory on some distant planet gets blown up. And then she uses Reverse to go back in time prior to her arm getting cut off and stops that from happening. That drastically changed her timeline, but the factory on that distant planet is still going to blow up because it didn't affect that. And that's the reason why he doesn't blame her or tell her not to use Reverse anymore, because of the fact that ultimately it doesn't really affect things that much. Yeah, it changes the world number that they're technically in, but it really doesn't do anything because eventually the universe, after Reverse does affect some things, will course correct back to its original timeline. Oh, and by the way, remember how we started the series off in World 29, and then we went to World 30 after she used Cat Leaper after everyone died, fighting Draken Joe? We originally thought that she had used Cat Leaper 29 times prior to the beginning of the series, and that's the reason why we were in World 29. But we get clarification in this chapter that no, more than likely what happened was that that was the number of times she used Reverse as a kid subconsciously without even being aware of it. And actually no, technically, since she first used it in the series in front of us during the Sun Jewel arc, we technically started the series off in World 28 and then went to 29 right before they fought Draken Joe. So now that we have this brand new understanding that it's actually Reverse, not Cat Leaper, that changes the world number, Master Noah decides that from now on, when we're talking about Rebecca using Cat Leaper to go to a different timeline, he's going to refer to those timelines as different universes. So basically the way he breaks it down is that we started the series off in Universe 1, that's the universe where Shiki died and they lost to Dragon Joe. Then Universe 2, as we find out in this chapter, was actually a universe where they were supposed to die trying to stop the bomb from exploding on Narrow 66, at least her and Shiki were. But because they didn't die, they went to a brand new universe, Universe 3, which is where we're currently at post the time skip. Now, the big thing about this is the fact that Rebecca does not remember using Cat Leaper to basically change timelines to stop the planet from exploding or to save them from dying on that planet. But Master Noah says that something definitely happened right before the planet exploded because of the fact that using his God Eye, he can tell that right before the planet exploded, a great number of people's locations suddenly changed, which is basically his God Eye E-figure ability, letting him know that the universe or the timeline changed drastically. So there's no question that we're now in Universe 3, no longer in Universe 2. But if Rebecca wasn't the one who caused us to change universes, it does bring up the question of who did. And this is actually what I was talking about in the beginning of the video of what either Shiki did or Zhao Mei did that we're being hinted to. So remember back at the end of the arc right before the planet exploded, and Shiki was basically given those paths to choose between from Zhao Mei, where he could either try to stop the planet from exploding or try to run away, and he chose to run. In that exact moment, when he chose to run, is when we changed universes. And we know this for sure because that's the exact reason why Ziggy said that we are now in World 31, because Shiki made that choice. So making that choice caused us to go to different universes, but as of right now, we don't know if it was actually Shiki himself through some hidden power that we're not aware of just yet that actually caused us to go to Universe 3, or if it was Zhao Mei basically changing universes on us. And actually, because I am starting to believe a little bit more and more each day that the theory that Ziggy might be a future version of Shiki that came back in time is actually true, I'm going to throw in the third theory that maybe his own actions caused us to change universes. But anyway, they decided to put the whole conversation on what caused them to change universes to the side for now because of the fact that neither one of them actually have a concrete answer, and they decided to get on the topic of what's going on with Connor. And basically the way Noah explains it is that because they're in a different universe, this is a different version of Connor than the one she originally met. So in Universe 1, they met the Connor who was adrift in space and actually helped them by piloting the ship for them. Then in Universe 2, they met the Connor who actually joined Ziggy's crew. And now in Universe 3, they're meeting a brand new Connor. So he says that because this is a brand new Connor that they're meeting, she should be able to trust him. And even Shiki later on says that, hey, this Connor guy seems like a pretty nice guy, we can probably trust him. And we even see him kind of joking around and playing around with Pino in the chapter, so everything's pointing to us being able to trust this guy. Which makes me think that even though I do want to trust him, that Hiro's trying to mislead us and he actually might still work under Ziggy, just not in the same capacity that he originally did. But as of right now, I'm going to kind of try to put my faith in him and that he's not betraying them, because I do kind of hope that Connor joins the crew as their pilot for the ship, because we saw exactly how skilled of a pilot he was in the original timeline in Universe 1, when he first boarded Eden Zero with them. So I'm really hoping that by the end of this next arc, we're actually going to have Connor officially join the crew as their pilot. Then after that, we cut over to a conversation between Sister and LZ, where Sister tells her that the factory is actually located on the planet Lendard. I almost said Leonard there, but she tells her where the planet is located, and LZ knows of it because, again, she's originally from the Kati Cosmos, and she says that her and her crew actually go there and check it out, which has me excited because I already figured that we'd actually be seeing LZ in this next arc. I thought maybe visiting her home planet, but now that we know she's actually going to be on Lendard with the Eden Zero crew, and we know that Justice is also currently in the Kati Cosmos, and more than likely he's going to be tipped off to the fact that they're all going to Lendard. More than likely, we're going to have all these characters conversion on this planet, which means we're going to be getting round 2 of LZ versus Justice in this next arc. And if that idea didn't already have you excited for this next arc, then this will, because we find out from LZ that more than likely, Ziggy's currently located on Lendard, and he's waiting for them to show up. And we actually do get clarification on this in this chapter, because we see Ziggy with his crew on Lendard, which, by the way, we see a new Brigadier and a new Killer in this chapter, which the designs for the Mark II versions of these characters are much cooler than the previous ones. But we find out in this chapter at the end that Ziggy actually knows that LZ and the Eden Zero crew are on their way to Lendard, and he's waiting for them because he wants to have a final showdown once and for all on this planet between him and Shiki, which means we're going to be having grandpa versus grandson in this next arc, and I don't know how I feel about this. Because on the one hand, it is exciting to think that Shiki and Ziggy actually are going to fight in this next arc, but at the same time, I still don't think Shiki's strong enough to take on Ziggy just yet, so I don't see a way for Shiki to win this fight by himself, which means that I don't want it to happen just yet. I want it to basically be teased, but not happen just yet, unless we're going to be doing that whole thing where basically Shiki thinks he can take Ziggy on now, and then Ziggy puts him in his place, and then later on in the series near the end, we had the real final confrontation between the two of them. Not to mention we still have 2 more OSGs that we have to deal with before I really think we should be dealing with Ziggy. So I still think the fight between them, the real fight between them, is still far way away. But regardless actually if this actually ends up being the final fight between Ziggy and Shiki, or if this is basically just a tease to what's going to be coming on later in the series, I'm still excited to see it. I know you guys are too, and that's pretty much it for the chapter. Thanks for watching the video, guys. I really do hope you all enjoyed it. Let me know down below what you thought about the chapter, and I will catch you all in the next video. Peace.